Thank you, Viki.
You're welcome.
I am speaking with Viki Young, and she has agreed to share with us one of her stories about how she moved from fear to faith. Thank you so much, Viki. So my question is, how did you go from Catholic to Unity and become our wonderful substitute piano player? How did that happen?
Well, I had left Catholicism very early because mostly I became Catholic to get into a Catholic school when I was 7 years old in Texas. Military family, moving around a lot. Texas schools would not take California students at grade level, so I wasn't going to be able to start until I was much older than other first graders, and my brother would have been put back several years. So in order to get in, my mother, who had been never baptized, but her family had been Catholic, had us both baptized Catholic, and we got into the Catholic school. And in 1 year, I learned to be terrified of God, because I was told, he's not your friend, he's not your buddy, and if you broke any of the commandments, you were going straight to a terrible place where you were going to be sorry.
How old were you?
7.
Ouch.
By the time we left there, and this was only 1 year, I mean, I'd learned I had a guardian angel that cried every time I did something wrong, and I figured she was blind. I had learned, as I say, that God was not my friend. I'd learned if I talked in church, I might choke to death on the sacrament, or I might have the floor open up in front of the altar and I would disappear. I'd learned all these things, and of course, the older kids had encouraged this. And my grandfather, who lived in San Francisco, did tell me that all of that was not right, that God loved everyone. And he said, you know, if you are nice, if you've tried to be kind, if you've tried to be good, when you die, you will go to heaven, because God will want you there, because God loves everyone. And that's what I kind of held in my heart, but I knew not to tell my parents, because I figured they were in it with the nuns and the priests, and certainly never to say it at school. So after that, we moved back to San Francisco, and I was going to public schools, and I started piano lessons at the age of about 9 because my grandfather wanted me to play. My first teacher was a concert pianist who had the mistaken idea that I was a child prodigy. That was very wrong. And at one of our lessons, where I came on time, because my mother would drive me and we were very punctual, I went in, and someone was playing the piano, and it was brilliant and beautiful, and it was one of her students who was a college piano major, who she was helping out. And so I sat there and listened in awe, and then, when that student was done, my teacher said, and now Viki will play for you. Well, Viki hadn't been expecting this. Viki had nothing prepared. Viki had not thought this was going to happen. Sat down, and I couldn't play any of the pieces that were in my book at all. And then, along with that, my teacher started discussing with the other student, as if I wasn't there, about how I had no talent, that I was not reading music, I was not learning.
And you
I was
were
trying,
9?
And I was 9. And I was trying to play by finger numbers, which was probably true. And after that student left, she was screaming and yelling at me, that's the teacher, and I was crying. And I left the lesson in tears. And of course my mother said, well, it's your fault for not practicing enough. Well, okay. But I hated my lessons. I did not like my teacher. I would get sick on the way to the lessons. I got through the lessons, and they were just awful. And finally, we moved out of that particular area of San Francisco into an area called South San Francisco, which is another city. And so we stopped lessons with her, and we started with another teacher. And now I can't remember if it was her or the second teacher, who I remember, his last name was Bates, and I think of Norman Bates because he's like, you know, from Psycho. One of them told my parents I was never going to learn to play because I was not talented at all. And in my mind, I hear musical moron, which I don't know if my brother said that or if I heard it from one of these teachers, but that's what I thought. However, after we stopped lessons, I still had the piano, and of course I heard all about, oh, you know, we have this thing taking up the whole living room, and you won't even touch it. So I started playing on my own. And periodically we'd have lessons for a little while with some teacher, and then it would kind of fall apart. Well, then I got into high school, and it turned out that the music teacher in high school, the choral and piano teacher, was a friend of my grandfather's. And he knew I could play. And so he had me start teaching the other high school students basic music. And it was very strange, because I knew more than they did, which was the first time in my whole life I'd met someone I knew more about music than. And I could teach them things. And then he had me learn a piano concerto. I didn't play it very well, but he had me learn it. And he played the orchestra part. And then I got into college, where I auditioned to be a piano major, because I thought, well, these people told me I couldn't do it. I can do it. You know, I'm one of those people that if you say, no, I'm going, I'll figure this one out, I'll show them. So I got into being a piano major. And it was very hard. I can remember my piano teacher, my master teacher, telling me that there were other people that could take my place because they had a waiting list. And so if I didn't practice, I was going out. And it seemed like every time I played for the other piano majors, I would look down and my hands would be doing this with the keys. And my knees would be shaking and I wouldn't be able to pedal. And I can remember getting through my junior qualifying just because that was every year you had a jury. And then when you were a junior, to become a junior, you had to pass what was called junior qualifying. And my then boyfriend, who was an organ major, went up on the stage with me to turn pages for me. And the one that I had to have memorized, he kept saying, you can do it, because I had decided I couldn't play from memory. And I got through it, and that was great. And he was around also when I did my senior one, which is your final one. It's like if you don't pass your senior one, you have wasted all this time. And I got through that, and it went very well. And then I went in, got credentialed, and I started teaching in schools. And I had decided I will never yell at a piano student. I'm certainly never going to slap them like my first one did. And if I'm teaching in schools, I'm going to try and always be, I'm trying to teach the love of music, not how to hate something.
Right.
And that was a problem. But I still didn't like playing for people. And when the students would be doing their Christmas program, I decided, well, I'm going to think nobody's listening to me. I could be smashing on the keyboard with my feet. They're watching their kids, and everything's fine. And, I taught in schools for years. And then when I moved to San Diego, I taught at a school here for a while. And then I just stopped teaching. It just kind of worked out that way. And I still had piano students coming, but I wasn't playing for anyone. And I also had not been in a church for a long time. Periodically in college, I'd gone and I'd sung in some masses, so I knew some Latin, things like that. But I hadn't gone to anything. So
still Catholic when you were going to church?
No, it was basically we sang. I was in a big choir in the college.
Wow.
And we got to sing in St. Mary's Cathedral, which was quite an experience. But we had to sing a Latin Mass.
Yeah.
And so I sang Latin. I sang the Pulant Gloria in Latin. But it was all that, this was just, concert repertoire. And when I was in college, I did go to a couple of Catholic masses and discovered, hey, the Mass is in English now. When did this happen? I didn't know. But on the other hand, I went with a friend to a Jehovah's Witness meeting and thought, this is strange, which I should never say that, but this is different. And when I moved here to this area, I discovered Joe didn't really have a religion. He had been raised Episcopalian by his Jewish mother and Mormon father. Interesting. But he'd married a Catholic, so he'd had to become Catholic. And he didn't want to go to church or anything. And I thought, okay, works for me. But I had some friends that wanted me to go to join their choir, and they were Mormon, and I went to some Mormon meetings and thought, I can't do this. First of all, if you think a Catholic Mass is long, go to a Mormon service. I'm sorry, that's a terrible thing to say, but it just seemed like they went on for years, and it would be one service. And I just thought, I can't do this. And then I was talking one time to Gail Culbertson, who was the grandmother of one of my piano students. And I mentioned that, I didn't do any religion because she was talking about something at Unity. And I mentioned what my grandfather had said. And she said, well, that's very much like a Unity principle. And the next time she came, she brought me this. Can everybody see that? That's your hymnal.
I know that one.
And she left it here. And of course, this is a pianist version because it's so you can turn pages easy. And so I sat down over the next couple of weeks and I played through them all because they're all fairly easy to sight read. And I thought, oh, this is sweet. Many of them familiar songs but different words. And then one day she said, well, you know, we do this Thursday service. It's very low-key. Why don't you come? So I went to several of them, and I enjoyed hearing Jody play, and there was this tenor baritone, David, that was singing, and I had a lot of fun singing, and we had a great time. And then one day we came, no Jody, no David. And Robert had said, well, I'm going to do this a cappella. And I thought, well, he's got a good voice, but then this little voice inside of me said, yeah, but you've played all these, and look what he's doing. Those are songs you can do. And so I put my hand up and I said, Robert, I think I can play those for you. And he had me come up, and I didn't do great, but I didn't do horrible. And Robert thought it was great, and he asked me if, when Jody's not here, do you want to fill in? Okay. And since then, I've gotten to play a Sunday service because Jody was out of town, and that was a big deal. It was very much bigger than anything I'd done like that before. I also got to play a wedding, which I said to Robert, this is funny. I have helped my students learn how to play for weddings, and I've never played for one. And yet I no longer had any of the repertoire, so I had to get the music together. But it was like interesting that at the age of 66, I played a wedding for the first time, and many of my piano students were playing weddings when they were 15 and 16. So that's kind of how I changed all of that. And I'm not as afraid of playing in front of people, but I still don't like it. My favorite person to play for is me.
Well, and I've always felt that playing an instrument is a kind of prayer. How we connect and grow and communicate and express our emotions.
Well, and there's the saying that I can't remember exactly how it goes. Music is love put into, without words, and that's very true. And also make a joyful sound unto the Lord. And so when I play ragtime, and I remember how people were scandalized by ragtime in 1890, but God allowed someone to do this.
You do
and
not
you play
remember
it.
1890.
No, I don't, but I remember reading about it. And, and I play them. I play vaudeville songs and sing the words, even though they were scandalous. But it's because, you're spreading joy. You're singing, and if only God is listening, that's fine. I also have Donald Ducks in here. They listen. I'm sure they're all making little comments. But that's the thing, is I enjoy doing it for me. I enjoyed my Jewish mother-in-law at Christmas parties, and I would play the piano for a couple of hours to those. Before we would eat, then after we would eat, which was great because everyone wanted to sing because they were all drunk. And we had a great time. We called ourselves the once-a-year singers, and it was fun, and we enjoyed it. And I do miss that. That's one thing I really, truly miss. I miss my mother-in-law, but I miss a lot her Christmas Eve parties,
Well, and I love your story, and thank you so much for sharing it with us. My biggest takeaway is not only did you take fear and turn it into faith, but you reached back and offered students an opportunity to love music and not just to have to sit at the piano. That's a hero move. What a wonderful gift.
One that has been, it's what I've told all of my parents. If it's not fun anymore, let them quit.
Yeah.
And because the point is to teach them to love music, enjoy music, to be able to fall back on it. When they're 30, they might pick it up again. But they've had a positive experience. They don't hate it, which I hated it when I was like 10 years old.
Yeah, it's amazing you play. It really is. And just a real testament to challenging your own fear. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for
You're very
sharing
welcome.
this
You're very
story
welcome,
with
Linda.
us.
And love you.
I love you too.
And we touched, and we're not allowed to. We did. Ooh.
But it wasn't on camera.
No. Yeah. Don't turn us in. Don't turn us in.
Thank you so much.